Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast. Today we are doing a really fun thing. We're going to do a speech evaluation. And so we have the lovely Jessica Baehr, who is an author, and she wants to get better at speaking. And so she is going to give us a speech today, and then I'm going to evaluate it. So I am very grateful to her for being so brave and open and vulnerable because that's kind of a scary thing to get a speech critiqued on a podcast for the whole world to watch. So good job, Jessica. You're very brave. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me and for letting such an amateur come on. I am obviously better with the written word than the spoken word,
Yes,
but
that
they're both important.
they are. They're very important. And I
Mm,
love that you're building both skills because if you're an author, you really should be a speaker, right? Because
Absolutely, especially since a lot of what I write does lean towards a form of advocacy as well. So that is something that I can absolutely see happening.
love it. Good. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself before we start the speech?
I am a bookworm, obviously.
Yay,
You
bookworm.
have
I am also a bookworm.
They're my favorite things. They were absolutely my escape because back in high school, I was the kid that if you asked me a direct question, I would nod or shake my head and I still wouldn't speak to you. I was so ridiculously, painfully shy. I drove my poor parents absolutely bonkers because they are both extroverts.
Oh no, that's so funny.
And they just did not know what to do with me. I ended up being grounded from books for an entire summer one year because I read, this was before Harry Potter, but think like the Harry Potter series, all of the books.
Yeah.
I read all of them in 2 months.
Oh my
They're
gosh.
like, no, you're done. That was your reading list for the summer. Go play.
Wow.
So I was that kind of a child. So I've obviously gotten better, and that is in large part due to someone that I hope will make an appearance in the show today, but we'll see what happens. She's kind of undependable. But I wanted to introduce my um the reason that I'm able to even do what I am today from that um is because of someone named Paula. Paula has been a huge influence in my life. And there aren't a lot of famous Paulas, so I'm assuming that you're thinking, like, who is it? Is it Paula Abdul? Is it Paula Dean? Nope, it's my own personal little Paula. That is actually how I refer to my Tourette syndrome. So I also have Tourette syndrome. For those that don't know what it is uncontrollable movements and gestures. Sometimes I'll just shudder like I'm cold. I'm not often cold. I make it a point to stay in warm locations as much as possible. I mean, I was living in Hawaii for a time and I would still just
Oh,
shiver like I was cold, like at the beach. I'm
oh
not cold.
wow. Wow.
But that's a tick that I have. Um, However, I'm much more vocal. So I will periodically scream. I'll just be sitting in church and just sometimes I bark during meetings. Lately, my latest one, this is fun. I have a form called echolalia and I imitate sounds that I hear repeatedly. I have a boss that every morning will open her Red Bull. And so I've started going,
Oh
it's
my
so much fun.
gosh.
It's so much fun. Um, but for someone who was a painfully shy introvert, that was a bit of an adjustment.
Oh my gosh, right?
Luckily, I started out, first of all, I started out in high school. So I wasn't told as a child the way people with Tourette's often are, like stop being a distraction, stop being such a bad kid.
Yeah.
Um, so I didn't have any of that. I started in high school where I could say, "Oh, I'm sorry. I think that was a hiccup." I started out sounding like hiccups until they evolved and were definitely not hiccups. So life happens. I was lucky enough to kind of grow into this process. But as I got older and grew into them, I started to realize how much personality they had. And a friend of mine's like, you should name them. You should call them like Paula or something. And so I said, done, done. Paula is my alter ego,
Oh
also
my
known as my Tourette syndrome. And I wasn't actually even officially diagnosed until I was a senior in college.
wow.
So right, a little bit late. And even then, it took me a while to go through college. I was 24 when I was diagnosed. So at 24 years old, I find out that I've got Tourette syndrome. I'm a senior in college. I had, oops, missed all the deadlines for internships. And so I decided to instead write a senior paper on Tourette syndrome and how that affects communication, which was my major. Communications was my major.
Ooh.
And my
Wow.
professors were so supportive. They're like, this is great. There's nothing like this in the field. You should really get this published. Turns out it's really hard to publish a college paper, and I'm borderline lazy, but also, again, bookworm. And it was easier to publish a book, which is not an easy process. Do not let that confuse you at all. Um, but I decided to expand it into what is now my first book called Awkwardly Strong: How to Move from Insecure to Inspirational, which is absolutely the goal, and why, again, coming back full circle, is why I wanted to be a better speaker, because Tourette syndrome and advocacy and understanding that these children are not problems or distractions like they may have been told their entire life
Yeah.
is a thing. A lot of my books tend to center on this theme. My first three are all how things that we often use as excuses are tools to utilize. So we have awkwardly strong, we have tragically strong, we have fearfully strong. Because I tell you what, the second I hit that publish button, I never understood adrenaline junkies until that moment. All of a sudden, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I get it. This is the biggest rush I have ever felt, and I have to do it again. This is my life now. Oh, at 30 years old, I published my first book, got this adrenaline rush, and we started publishing my first three. I've since published a fourth one on how to self-publish a book, because obviously jumping in the way that I do, impulsive as I am, just because, again, with the ADHD that tends to be a side effect with the Tourette syndrome, I jumped all in and then realized, I could have done a lot better with that. But at the same time, it's given me a great base. I'm all about using those awkward tools. So now I know how to put out a really good product, and I'm about to release my first fiction novel, which, big surprise, is also Tourette syndrome based.
Yay.
So I'm writing a historical fiction about the first recorded case of Tourette syndrome. So when I was doing this deep dive study in college, I discovered a woman that they credit with, she's the reason they started taking this seriously. Before, it was always just, oh, it's just bad manners, it's ill breeding. This woman was a countess in France in 1800s. So first of all, post-revolutionary war over there, when it's, not always okay to be nobility,
Yeah.
but obviously had a very different upbringing, and she had the swearing form of Tourette's. So they're like, she doesn't normally act like this. And then all of a sudden she's out there calling people effing pigs,
Oh
which was
my
an actual tick that she had.
God.
Um, and so they
Wow.
started to take it seriously. She saw a doctor in 1825 and was just for years known as M. Dampierre in these medical records.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden in 2020, when I've been thinking about writing her story for a long time, but all of a sudden her name just like dropped into my lap. I have her actual name. I've been able to do research, and I've written a novel based on as much historical accuracy as I can while filling in the gaps and making it fun, because this woman is amazing. Despite being a countess with the swearing form of Tourette's and being this complete oddity, she never once hid. Even people today with Tourette syndrome, they will still hide. And I'm not a fan.
Not a fan of hiding. Good. I'm not
Not
either.
hiding, because these stories are just so inspiring and unique and can be powerful. What person do you look up to has not had some kind of trial that they've had to overcome? Who
Yeah.
that's the purpose of a hero. Like it sets us up for like this great, amazing life where we can do a lot of good, but no, we hide.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's a bit about who I am, but that was also the speech that I wanted to prepare, because advocacy and telling my story is going to be an important part of that.
Yes.
So
You should be giving a speech on that for years. Like that should be your
that's the
thing.
goal. Yeah, I would
I
love
love
to.
that. Wow. It's such a fascinating topic. People don't usually talk much about it.
They're
Tourette's.
getting better at it. TikTok, because
Good.
the movements and the vocalizations are referred to as tics.
Yeah.
So the app TikTok has actually opened a lot of people up to that.
Oh
That's a
my God.
hashtag, is TikTok, but like TIK or
Yeah.
TICTALK.
Oh,
So
cute. TikTok.
yes,
Oh my gosh, I
TikTok.
love it.
Yeah. So it's opened up a lot of conversation, which has been awesome.
That's
And
so
people
good.
are getting better at it. I don't have to explain what Tourette syndrome is near as much as I used to.
That's good.
But there, I am amazed at how often I do still have to explain, like, no, I've never heard of Tourette's. What is it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That is so cool. I love it. I love that you are tackling such an interesting topic. I love
it's
that.
so much fun too. It really is. And I'm really bummed that Paula did not make an appearance. But again, she's kind of uncontrollable.
I mean, that
I
is
know
the
it.
point of her, right?
Right.
I love it.
Maybe during the evaluation, she'll pop up. We'll see.
Yeah, maybe so. Ugh, all right. Well, I'm very excited to hear your speech. It's going to be fun.
That was my speech.
Was that actually your speech? Oh my gosh. I didn't take any notes. I was just riveted on what you were saying. Oh my gosh, that's
It's
so funny. Oh my heck. Okay.
that was, yeah. I'm glad that you were that riveted.
I totally was. Oh my gosh. All right. So let me ask you this then. What is the
Okay.
opening of your speech? Because we just eased into it so much. I didn't even catch what was the opening. So can you repeat the opening? Because that is really the most important thing is to make sure you start off with a bang. And
Right.
I
The
didn't know you
the
started.
where I start is typically I want to introduce you to someone who's changed my life, and I want to introduce you to someone named Paula if she shows
Nice.
up. That's typically where I want to start.
Okay, so I remember you saying that.
Yeah.
I want to introduce you to someone that has changed my life. That was really funny. Oh my gosh. That was such a smooth transition. See, that is a masterful speech if people don't even know you've started giving a speech.
Yes.
So
Thank
funny.
you.
Oh my gosh. Like I almost don't even know what to do with you now. All right, you guys. So Jessica was too smart for me because I didn't even realize she was giving her speech, as you heard. So what we did is we paused the recording. I went back and I watched the recording of her speech so that I could actually give her feedback since this was the point of us doing this. So, Jessica, are you ready for your evaluation?
Yes.
Oh, all right. So I feel like this is a really interesting case because it was just a conversation on to me, I thought it was just a conversation. And so like I was responding and talking back to you. And so like if I'd known it was an actual speech, I wouldn't have said anything. I would have just been like, audience. I would have just been listening. So so there's a lot of me breaking into it and like kind of changing the dynamic. So of course I wouldn't have done that. So okay. So number one. Um I think as a conversation or as an interview, this was 100% amazing. Like I wouldn't even change anything.
Hmm.
So I was thinking, well, if I were, how can I give her help? How can I give her value from this? So I'm going to say if we were to turn this into like a stage speech where somebody introduces you, you come out onto the stage, there's a huge room full of people, it would go a little bit differently. So I'm going to just give you feedback based on what if we turned this into a stage speech? Cool.
Perfect.
Okay, good.
Perfect.
All right. So love that you started with I'm a bookworm and you pointed at all your books. So you wouldn't be able to point at your books on a stage. So I do love it when people start their speech with a question that engages the audience. So if you did turn this into a stage speech, you could come out and say, raise your hand if you're a bookworm. So that would be a good question for to ask. And sometimes, so there's this advanced technique some speakers use where they want to get every single person's hand raised before they get into the content of their speech. So a funny, and it's always good to be funny, I think. I think making your audience laugh at first is one of the most highly connecting things you can do. So if you came out and you said, raise your hand if you're a bookworm, and there probably won't be a ton of people raising their hand. Or maybe there would, because you do usually attract people like you into your audience. So you might get most of the hands raised. But a fun thing to do to get everybody to raise their hand is say, how many of you know what a bookworm is? Or you could say, how many of you know what a book is? Or how many of you have seen a book? So you could get silly so that eventually every hand in the room is raised, right?
Mhm.
The first time I spoke in London, I was really kind of nervous because I was like, what if British people hate me, right? What if they don't get my sense of humor? So I asked a question and not very many people raised their hand. So then I asked another question and then I was like, wait a minute, I see what's happening here. In my head, I didn't say that out loud, but out loud I said, how many of you have just decided you're not going to raise your hand no matter what I ask? Raise your hand. Everybody in the room lost it. Like they were laughing so hard and everybody raised their hand. It was really funny. So I was able to turn all the people who were like, that kind of attitude into fans and they would raise their hand. So I think it's really good to always be funny at the beginning because making somebody laugh makes them like you and then they're more engaged in your speech. So if you wanted to go that route, I think that'd be really fun. And then you go into talking about your childhood and how books were your escape. Love that. I think that's another chance to raise your hand. How many of you love to escape into a book, into another world, and then you could get some more engagement? That would be really fun.
How many are sick of reality?
Yes. How many of you would love to escape your reality into a book? Right? That would be.
Mhm.
I thought it was really cute when you started listing all the Paulas. And it's funny in my head, I was thinking Paula Poundstone, who's a comedian. I don't know if you've heard of her.
I'm not familiar with her.
Yeah,
I'll
she's
have to find
very
her though. I
funny.
love comedians.
Yes, Paula Poundstone. She's very funny. So then you're like Paula Abdul, Paula Dean. I thought that was really cute. Um, I loved when you did the Red Bull sound, echolalia. That is an amazing word. I loved it. And I loved that you demonstrated it for us. That was really interesting. And you sounded just like it. It was awesome. Good impersonation of a Red Bull can. If this were to be a stage speech, I would maybe point out the 3 points more obviously. Because looking back, I wasn't really sure what the 3 points were, but you did tell me beforehand that you had 3 points. So point those out more obviously, maybe. Okay, so
Okay.
oh, I just said queso, but I didn't start a speech with it, so it's okay. I
Wait,
would
we'll just pretend it's cheese. Queso,
It's
cheese.
just cheese.
It's just cheese.
So maybe tell me right now what your 3 points were. I'm gonna write them down.
As far as like an outline going into this, I wanted to introduce Paula and how she appeared, how I'm an author, and introduce my fiction piece, Madame.
Got it. Okay. Yes. Yeah, that's good. Okay.
So with
I
bullet
oh
points like that, sorry, with bullet points like that, or do you really want me to like emphasize them like
no.
that?
Yeah, that's
Okay, I
not.
didn't think so. Okay,
That's more of a behind the scenes structure for you.
right,
So yeah,
right,
you
right,
wouldn't share those. But that's why I wanted to know what they were. Because I wasn't positive, but now I see, yeah, they were just structure for you.
right.
So, in a stage speech, you want to educate, entertain, and inspire. So, you definitely educated us and you definitely entertained us. I would like some kind of a call to action because let's say you're speaking to a room full of people where nobody has Tourette's
Mm.
versus speaking to a room of people that have it or have someone in their life with it, and they need some kind of help going forward. They need to come to terms with it in a positive way, like you have, right? They need to learn to live with their Paula and have a good relationship with her, like you have. So I would add some kind of
Oh,
inspiration.
sorry.
Did Paula just come?
That was Paula.
Ah,
Sorry to
welcome.
interrupt, but I'm just like, yay, she showed up.
Hey, welcome, Paula.
She likes you. It's a good sign. It's a good
Okay.
sign when Paula shows up.
Yay, good. I love that. So I would invite you to think about some way to inspire the audience to take some kind of action. So it would be different for different audiences. So it's
Right.
always good to know, who you're speaking to, what's the point of the event you're speaking at. And if it's your own event, awesome, then you get to decide all of that yourself. You get to decide who's coming and what the point of it is. But I would say if you had like if your point was to help people learn how to live with it, have a happy relationship with their Tourette's, then do something like a challenge or an invitation or tools, something that they could take home and work on themselves. And if it was for people who don't have it, like if it's a big general audience, then it could be more of an awareness talk. Like your people aren't doing this for attention. They're not doing it on purpose. They're not doing it to be jerks, and explain to them. So then it'd be more informational at first. Explain to them what is Tourette's, where does it come from, maybe some statistics. So see, you could have two completely different speeches, but both based on Paula, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which could be really fun. So I would suggest doing that. Have a speech for the people with Tourette's in their life, and the speech for general audiences where you're trying to raise awareness and acceptance of Tourette's so people, when they do come across it, don't completely flip out, right?
Right.
So I would say what you did was awesome. I loved it. I wish I had known it was your actual speech because I would have shut the heck up because I kept talking and interacting with you. I wish I hadn't done that.
I do better with conversational though. Like I kind of loved it and I think I spoke better as a result of that. So thank you.
You're welcome. And here's something to think about. You can come out on stage and have a conversation with the audience. You could do it just like that. You could come out and be just conversational. And that could be really interesting. Like, I think people would really react well to that. I think they would connect with it. So I'm not saying don't be conversational on stage. I'm saying I just wish that I had known it was your speech because I would have shut up. But you could still come out on stage and tell the story like that. Like you're just talking to a friend.
Mm-hmm.
That and a lot of people when they come out on stage, they get all nervous and they go into presenter mode. Now
Mm-hmm.
I must speak like this. I have to be very serious and I have to be, very intentional and, not myself and blah blah blah. So I think that that's going to be kind of your superpower is that when you're on stage, you can be conversational with the audience and not turn into stiff presenter mode.
I
So,
don't think Paula would let me get into stiff presenter mode. I think that's one of the perks that's loosened me up as much as I have. I mean, that's the contrast from cannot speak to you, suddenly having to like, I'm sorry, I don't know what that noise was, and then being able to like explain it and like it has become my superpower. So yeah, I get that totally.
good. I'm glad you see it that way.
Mm,
I think this could be an amazing speech. And I hope that you do turn it into a stage speech also,
I
but
would love
keep your
that.
conversational tone
Mm,
and just add some kind of an ending, add a call to action at the end to help people go on with the next step of whatever you've taught them, whether to deal with their own Tourette's or to be more aware of Tourette's, either way. So, yeah, great job. You did. I didn't count your ums, but I don't remember any.
Yes.
So if
As
it
long as you
didn't,
don't remember them, that's the point.
that's a really good sign, right? That means
Right.
it wasn't enough for me to notice.
Good.
Yay.
Mm.
I think that this talk would be really, really good with a Q&A session at the end. So if you were giving this somewhere and you had time, I think a Q&A session would be really, really valuable for the audience
I
because
love Q&As. They're fantastic.
perfect. Have you ever given a big speech on this anywhere?
I've done numerous podcasts.
Hmm.
Um,
But on
I,
stage?
I'm trying to think about stage. I feel like I must have at least once, but I can't think of where it would have
Yeah.
been.
Okay.
Maybe like a local library. So I mean, still small scale.
Yeah.
I think I've done a couple like at libraries and just talking about Tourette syndrome. Um, I did one at work, but it was another computer one because I work at a bank by day. Um, and they had like a DEI training that I was
Oh,
able to speak on Tourette
cool.
syndrome, what it is,
That's awesome.
how we're not victims and, using things as a strength and whatnot. So I have done a few, but usually
Good.
smaller scale.
Yeah.
So
Okay. I am just kind of wondering where would be a good places for you to look to do speaking gigs.
I would love at some point to be able to give my goals as far as like speaking. I would love to be able to give a TED talk. I would love
Um,
to be able to write. Wouldn't that just
mhm.
be a great TED talk?
Oh my gosh, yes.
I also want to speak with the Tourette Association of America every Tourette Syndrome Awareness Month is May 15th to June 15th, which can I just tell you how perfect it is that it's like half a month and half a month? Like, what an interruption, and like how perfect for Tourette Syndrome. Um, but every year they have this big Tourette Syndrome, essentially conference that I would love to be a speaker at for the TAA. Um, those are the two big ones. But I mean, I'd love to be able to do some more of this, even as a fiction author. I know a lot of fiction authors will give presentations and then sell their books at the back, type of a deal. Um, Things like that, where I'm the keynote speaker, that where I'm like the point, I
Yes.
guess.
Yes. Right.
Like,
What is the
um,
point?
yeah. So
What
I mean,
about
it doesn't necessarily
schools?
have to be a conference. You know what? I think I have done a couple of schools.
I could see schools being a good place for you to branch out into.
Mm-hmm.
Colleges, high schools. I think that is all my feedback. Let me just check my notes, make sure I didn't miss anything. No, I got it all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being on and for being fun and open and vulnerable and brave. That was great. I loved
Thank
it.
you.
I loved your story. Your story's fascinating. I think people are
Thank
going to
you.
love this episode.
Cool. Good. I hope so.
All right. Well, Jessica, you have an amazing day
You as well. Thank you
and
so much.
we'll talk soon and do another episode. I can't wait.
Me too. Thank you.
You're welcome.